Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 125th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I couldn't be doing any better. We just sat here for like 3 hours before time to record the podcast, just talking about, just any topic that popped into our heads. And then figured, at some point tonight,
like, why are we here?
Yeah, we better actually record this.
We have to record a podcast.
We just love our quality time, I suppose.
This is our quality time. This is our midweek, just hangout time with the boys and talk about Mizzou and literally everything else in the world. Yes. But we don't record that part.
We might. if we need to blackmail somebody, we could always pull that out.
Yeah, well, like me, yes, probably.
Exactly. Kyle, we've got some stuff to talk about today. We have a new defensive coordinator. We also had a couple additions to the Mizzou football team, and we have some basketball games to recap and a big one to preview. But before we do that, we got to give a shout out to our YouTube subscribers. That number keeps going up. We appreciate every single one of them. And if you are just listening to us on a podcast feed, feel free to hop over to YouTube. Even if you don't want to watch us there all the time, a subscription is very helpful. And if you are already subscribed, we appreciate you. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It helps us out. Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, that covered it really well. Really well.
And if you comment on YouTube, I'm just sitting there waiting to reply. Kyle gets all the engagement on Twitter. I get the crumbs of the YouTube comments. But we're gonna develop a little community.
We're building yes. a community. Yeah. So please comment. Tell us your thoughts.
I appreciate everybody that comments there. That's the highlight of my day when I get to reply to that. All right, Kyle, we got Steve Wilks, new defensive coordinator.
I wore my hunting attire last week. And
yes.
It must have worked.
Yep.
Because here we are, new defensive coordinator, thanks to me, thanks to my orange hoodie. And I think this is a great hire. I think this is honestly, I never saw this coming in a million years. I never saw someone who spent a long time in the NFL. He's a little older than I was thinking. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's interesting, but I think I like it, and I think I can. I'm excited about it.
I like it too. Before we get too far into this, let's get everybody up to speed on who exactly Steve Wilks is. As you alluded to, he is 51 years old. That's not too terribly old as far as college coaches go. He actually attended Appalachian State, so there's a tie there with Eli Drinkwitz. He's had a tremendous number of stops as a coach. Obviously, all on the defensive side of the ball, mostly defensive backs. He coached defensive backs at Illinois State, Appalachian State, East Tennessee State, Bowling Green, Notre Dame, Washington, the Chicago Bears, San Diego Chargers, Carolina Panthers. Those were all defensive backs, among other roles, in addition to that.
Had a great defense in Carolina.
Absolutely.
Your Carolina Panthers.
Oh, yeah. I was excited. When I saw his name being floated around, it took me back to the most recent golden years of Panther football when they had an excellent defense.
Kuechly.
Oh, yeah. Went to the Super Bowl and everything. It's weird that they didn't play a Super Bowl that year.
Was he their defensive coordinator when they went to the Super Bowl?
He was not. He was the assistant head coach and defensive backs coach.
Gotcha.
When they went to the Super Bowl, he became the defensive coordinator maybe a year or two after that. But then he was hired as the Arizona Cardinals head coach, but was only there one season. I don't think they ever committed to him properly, I would say, because they gave him 1 year. They won 3 games and ended up with top pick in the draft. So
yeah, Kyler Murray's there because of that season.
Right. So maybe typically you see what a coach can do with the number 1 pick, but they obviously had eyes for Cliff Kingsbury got him in there.
It's just so little time to get something going, to get your scheme implemented and your staff on a roll. And I don't know, that just seems like he kind of got shafted there for sure.
Yeah, and at the time, it's not like Cliff Kingsbury was like at the top of the world. You know, It's not like there were people left and right trying to snatch him up.
Exactly.
Maybe there was more of a market there than we know, but he didn't exactly set the world on fire at Texas Tech.
No.
So then he took a year. Well, maybe I'm getting this mixed up. He immediately became the Browns head defensive coach, is what I was trying to say.
There you go.
The defensive coordinator for the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole staff got let go, and then he took a year off and looking at potential stops. And I read somewhere that he had actually been in contact with Eli Drinkwitz when Drinkwitz was at Appalachian State. So obviously, since that was his alma mater. But it came together here at Missouri for this upcoming season.
Yeah, he definitely, I don't know, had some rough stops at some of his most recent places, and it sounds like not all of it was his fault, and especially the Browns. I mean, they had a decent defense, and I think Freddie Kitchens was a horrible head coach and was not meant to be in that role.
There's a lot of dysfunction,
and that was an awful year for the Browns. So, so obviously they kind of just wiped everybody out that was there that year, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't really blame him for taking a year off. Like, he just has all these like 1 year stints, that weren't going really well, and a lot of it was probably out of his control. He said, I maybe need to just hit the reset button, take a year off, and start somewhere new. And I saw that he did an interview with The Athletic, and like you said, he mentioned in this article that he wanted to go visit Missouri and take a visit with Eli Drinkwitz. So maybe this has kind of been in the works for a while, but. He also mentioned that in his next stop, he wanted some longevity because he's tired of having 1 year stops everywhere, and that's just not healthy for anybody to probably operate like that. So it seems like that is a promising thing for his buy-in and for Missouri, and he wants to just really continue his career here and be here for a little while.
Yeah. It worries me a little bit that he's been removed from the recruiting scene for so long.
I agree.
But he was in the thick of it for many years, coaching in the college ranks. And, I'm sure we don't necessarily need him to be a hotshot recruiter that's snatching up a bunch of big names, because I think Drinkwitz himself, that's one of his stronger suits. I was thinking back to our conversation from last week when we talked about kind of what we were looking for, and you and I both had very extreme opposite desires in what we wanted out of a defensive coordinator. I said I wanted it heavily skewed towards recruiting and just get the best players possible and get them out on the field and see what happens. And you said you leaned more towards you didn't care as much about recruiting and was more interested in player development and whoever we get here, coaching them up, for the 3 or 4 seasons that they're here. So where do you think this lands on that spectrum?
That's really tough to know just because he's been out of the recruiting game for so long. But I do think that being able to say, I was a head coach in the NFL 2 or 3 years ago, I think that has a lot of credibility, and I think that's a great thing. I definitely don't think that he's going to be a bad recruiter, especially with the momentum Missouri has on their program right now. I think it would be tough to be a bad recruiter for Missouri, I think, right now. But I don't know. He seems like a very, very wise guy who's been around the block many times, has a lot of good experience in life and in football.
Yeah.
I think that he could be a great recruiter. Scheme-wise, it's tough to know. Arizona was terrible that year he was there, but traditionally he's run a 4-3 base defense wherever he's been, which is 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers. But in Arizona, for 80% of their snaps, they ran a nickel defense. So two linebackers, 5 DBs. So almost just playing the pass a lot.
And that's basically what Missouri's been doing
the
last few years.
Yeah, so that may be what they do next year at Mizzou. I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what they do scheme-wise. But
I've heard he likes to blitz all night, as they would say on Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
You understand that reference now.
Of course, yeah.
Not too long ago,
I wouldn't have known what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think I love an aggressive defense. I think it's put pressure on the quarterback, get the quarterback uneasy and uncomfortable. That's never a bad thing.
Yeah, that's where we both agreed last week, and what we want to see is rushing the passer more consistently. I do worry sometimes that obviously when you have a good pass rush, sometimes if your defense isn't very balanced behind it, you can just like feast on bad offensive lines and bad teams and then just get destroyed by teams that are a little bit more well-rounded if your linebackers and secondary aren't, where they need to be. But since his specialty is in the secondary, like Ryan Walters' specialty was previously, I don't know. I still just hope we can get the talent to Columbia and then see where we go from there. And that's looking good for the next couple seasons. Obviously, the recruiting momentum is there, so if he can just kind of fit seamlessly into what they've got going on, yeah, I don't think it's a home run hire necessarily. One thing I do like about him is that he's coached really bad teams and really good teams, and he's been a part of like storied programs like Notre Dame and kind of like the history behind an organization like the Chicago Bears. But then he's also coached teams that don't have that much of a history, like the Chargers, Panthers, Arizona Cardinals, and a place like Washington that doesn't really have a storied program history. So there's a lot of losing seasons under his belt, which I think you need sometimes. And that was actually something that kind of worried me about Eli Drinkwitz himself, was just the fact that he's just been pretty successful in his career. Even as an assistant, he always was, for the most part, a part of winning cultures. So hopefully you can just kind of instill that from day one and keep rolling. But hopefully we don't have to know how Eli Drinkwitz reacts to a disappointing season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a great point I hadn't really thought about, was just a wealth of experience, good and bad times, and those are absolutely experiences that you can learn from both.
He also went to the Super Bowl with the Bears. So, and that was in 2006. So he actually lost twice to a Peyton Manning-led team in the Super Bowl.
He's good, Peyton Manning.
He was good. With this news of a new defensive coordinator, though, we have news that defensive line coach Brick Haley is out. And last I saw, it was kind of being talked about as a mutual parting of ways. So
I've seen it reported a couple of different ways. I saw it reported on Power Mizzou. I guess they were kind of speculating on. I don't really know. They seem to be undecided. I saw it. Yahoo speculated that he was fired, and I'm not sure anybody really knows for sure what exactly the case was there. But either way, he's gone. And I definitely thought whenever I saw that news about Brick Haley, I speculated that would mean David Gibbs was probably out as a candidate, and they were probably going to bring in somebody new completely and just start over on probably most of the defensive positions, which we talked about. That makes sense. Kind of keep consistency with Ryan Walters and all those guys that were on staff before Coach got here. Keep him here for a year, and then maybe kind of start over after a year. But I think Brick Haley had his moments at Mizzou. He seems like a really interesting guy.
The players seem to just absolutely love him.
Yeah, I think he was loved by the players. I think he had some good recruiting moments. Our defensive line play on the field, however, was never very good whenever he was here.
Yeah, there were some standout players, it seemed like, kind of anchoring the defensive line and keeping it from being a disaster at times.
Right. Yeah, Jordan Elliott was definitely probably the best player that on the defensive line that came through while he was here.
Yeah, that definitely helps the whole line quite a bit.
For sure.
So I think it's definitely possible that maybe we're looking at somebody that potentially Steve Wilks. I mean, he'll probably have some say in who replaces Brick Haley. So we still have another coaching search on our hands.
Oh yeah, Coach Cool.
Yeah, probably not. He'll bring the playbook back with him.
Yeah, please.
That he stole
we'll
or
take
whatever that
back.
was. Okay, so keeping it on the football side of things, real quick. Tyson Ford chose Notre Dame. Not super surprising.
Yeah.
The crystal balls all went to Notre Dame late. Had previously been on Oklahoma. That's a miss, but we'll move on.
Can't get them all.
Yeah, he'll be a good player, I'm sure. Still time before football actually starts. Then we did get commitments to Missouri from a 2022 wide receiver out of I think Overland Park, Kansas, Mekhi Miller, and I'm committing to the pronunciation Mekhi.
I believe we have a Mekhi Wingo, who's in this most recent Mizzou class.
Yeah.
But we're going with Mekhi on this one.
We're gonna have to see what the official pronunciation guide in the media guide says when they get on campus. 2022 wide receiver, committed to Missouri. He was unranked on most of the recruiting services, but I think I saw he had offers from Cal, Nebraska, Iowa, in addition to Missouri.
Tennessee, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, on like 24/7, he was unranked. On Rivals, he was actually ranked like a high 3-star, which was surprised me because I looked at 24/7 first, and that kind of was like, okay. But Rivals has him as a high 3-star, and then one of the analysts for Rivals came on there and kind of gave a little bit of background info that they like him quite a bit. And yeah, he's an interesting prospect. He's pretty well rounded. He's fairly tall too. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", but he's really good hands. He had like 93 catches last year and like 18 touchdowns or something. So pretty dominant force for his high school team, and sounds like they look to him a lot in that offense. But I haven't watched a ton of him. You know, I watched his film, but I would definitely maybe compare him a little bit to a Kiki Chisholm or something like that. I don't know that he's gonna be burning people like constantly in college, but a guy that can make those tough contested catches in traffic, and those are very important as well.
The other commitment that we got just today, right? Or was that yesterday?
Who was it?
Blaze.
Blaze was yesterday.
Yesterday. Grad transfer linebacker from Rice.
Yes.
Blaze Aldridge.
Great name, first of all. I mean, obviously that was a position we knew we were going to go out and get, was a linebacker, an experienced linebacker in the transfer portal. I like this kid's film quite a bit. You know, he's pretty quick. He's aggressive. He's involved in what seems like every play. In 2019, he had like over 100 tackles and 21 and a half tackles for loss.
That's insane.
I could not believe my eyes when I saw that on his little stat sheet on ESPN. 21 and a half tackles for loss. I can't even imagine how that's possible. But that's just a guy who's going hard every single play. And
it seems like that would pair nicely with a defensive coordinator who likes to blitz quite a bit.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. But he's got one season of eligibility.
I think I saw that he led, was it Conference USA?
Yes.
In tackles the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And he was all conference both seasons.
Yeah.
Oof. That's a good pickup.
That's a great pickup.
You gotta love just like snatching one of the best players from an entire conference and be like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
come on down.
Well, that's 100% a great thing about. That's the fun part about transfer season. And, you know, you can say whatever you want about all the transfers and all that stuff, but a lot of times guys are making good decisions for their careers, and I think this is a great example of a guy who's gonna probably put himself on the NFL radar by playing a season at Missouri in the SEC. That's a fantastic opportunity for somebody.
And when you're looking around, from obviously we have experienced this in both sports, when players were transferring left and right out of Mizzou basketball not too long ago, you'd kind of look around, and still to some extent still happening, you kind of look around at where they end up, and that says quite a bit about how much of a miss they were for their original recruitment. And you know, some guys just go on to dominate at a lower, less competitive conference. I always like to keep track of guys that transfer out, but on the good end of that, you have a guy that just is dominating in a lower conference, and you say, hey, you want to come try that in the SEC? And that's just...
I mean, it's so tough to evaluate players coming out of high school. I mean, guys, teams miss on people all the time. And you see guys get drafted from small conferences and then go be successful in the NFL. It's even more likely that a guy from a lower level conference, the top of the Conference USA players could easily be successful on an SEC team. And I 100% expect Blaze to come in and start next year, because if you're going to go out and get a grad transfer for one season of eligibility, you're basically guaranteeing them a spot. They're going to be a contributor.
Any other football news before we switch things over to basketball?
Is Patrick Mahomes going to play this weekend?
Oh, yeah. All he did was, pinch a thing.
All he did is get choked out and concussion and stand up and look like he didn't know what planet he was on.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of scary.
Oh, yeah.
Especially as a Chiefs fan, I was quite worried. Yeah. But sounds good right now. He'll be out there. They're going to beat the Bills?
Yes. I can't imagine if you were not able to play. Like, I'm not.
That would be awful.
I root for the Chiefs. I'm not a huge diehard Chiefs fan. But, man, that'd just be terrible for the NFL.
Everyone. Yeah. Except for the Bills, probably.
As much as, like, even if you don't like players or teams or anything like that, like, I would never want a player like that to go down, because that's the best product.
Yeah.
Maybe in all of football right now.
Yeah.
At that position. And it's
even
like, why would you want to watch a game that doesn't have that?
Yeah. Even if it was a player that you were like, okay, I would absolutely want him to go out and throw 4 interceptions and just be terrible.
Yeah.
You still don't want to see him just not play because of injury.
Gotta say, Chad Henne played pretty admirably at the end of last week's game, though.
He balled out.
I don't know if he balled out, but he just did exactly what needed to be done, and I didn't trust him to do that.
I feel like
I'm just thinking of that one run play.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. I
think that pick that he threw was.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like he salvaged his reputation in that game specifically with that one run.
That I guess more so that was just incredible play calling by Andy Reid on the that was so gutsy.
The fourth down.
The fourth down play where he threw it to Tyreek to basically seal the game was just madness.
Had everybody fooled.
Yeah. Even Tony Romo was literally saying this is not a real play. They're gonna
no way they snap the ball here.
Yep, exactly.
If you fooled Tony Romo,
he was screaming into the mic it was a great call.
Yeah, that was a fun one. All right. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Any other
let me think about it.
Divergent topics?
I know you're ready to talk about basketball. All right, we'll turn it over to you.
We're actually going to turn it over to producer Cameron, because he has a report for us from the Springfield Public Schools Winter Classic, which saw Mizzou commits Anton Brookshire, Trevon Brazile, and the Kickapoo Chiefs.
Yeah.
Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Okay. Go up against Aminu Muhammad and what are they called?
The Greenwood Blue Jays.
That's it. And who else was there? Sunrise Christian from Kansas, and Hartville.
Who's the Class 2 champion, and they got bumped up to Class 3. I learned a lot about the whole class thing. It's a disaster.
Now I thought that I watched Greenwood win the Class 2 championship last year. Hartville was already Class 3?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Greenwood, I don't think won last year.
Well, okay. Yeah, 2 years ago is when I watched them, because last year was COVID.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's right. They didn't play.
I think they did play, though. Maybe they lost to Hartville. I don't know. Anyway, what we really want to know, and feel free, anything else you want to tell us about, but what we really want to know is about Anton Brookshire, Trevon Brazile in particular.
Those two both looked pretty good in the game. I didn't watch every game. I didn't watch them against Hartville, which Hartville went 3-0 in this. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But in the game against Greenwood, Brookshire and Brazile had 12 points each. Brookshire had 7 assists, led the team in assists. Another kid, Cameron Liggins,
I
think he's their big guy. He had 23 points. and led the team in
He's
rebounds.
a 2022 recruit or prospect.
But he looked really good. Aminu,
Yeah.
not very good.
What?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No.
It was honestly kind of disappointing. He seemed uninterested. But I also heard since then they beat like a Class 6 school, so he must have played pretty good since then.
Yeah.
He only had 8 points in the first game I watched, and he only had 4 against Kickapoo. And he got in foul trouble pretty early, so that put him on the bench most of the first half. But Kickapoo, I thought they looked really good. I kind of wish that I would have gotten to see the whole game against Hartville because I just caught the end of it because I was there with Greenwood people. So I was there mostly for that, but I got to catch the end of the Kickapoo-Hartville game, and it was really close. And Kickapoo's pace is way more fun to watch than Hartville.
They got to do something about the shot clock rule in high school. That's absurd.
Before we get too deep into this conversation, I do want to make you both aware that we could very well have some Mizzou fans that are also Hartville fans listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
They're a good team. I mean,
fundamentally, maybe one of the most like sound teams that I have watched in a while. Some of it is they have to be like that with the pace that they play.
Right.
Basically, they just wait until they find their opening to take a good shot or drive to the basket.
Which on some possessions means a minute.
It just takes a long time.
Yeah.
I honestly wish I would have had like a stopwatch or something because I swear some of those possessions got close to a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And
so what are they finding? They're just finding driving lanes at the end of that time, or they're finding a wide open three?
Yeah, I mean, just waiting for the defense to break down at some point. And they don't have a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
You would love this. Their blocking out was impeccable. I don't know if I've ever seen a team block out this well. Like when I say they were like one of the most fundamentally sound like teams I've ever watched, like I legitimately mean that.
Yeah. So that aspect of it was probably fun, but the pace of play.
Like I still think they would easily compete with Greenwood and Kickapoo if there was some kind of shot clock.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some possessions where I was like, all right, let's get the show on the road.
I feel like sometimes high school teams really do play really like fundamentally sound basketball. Like you said, they block out, they take good shots, they run good offense, almost better than college teams sometimes. I think whenever they're just really sometimes they can just be really well coached.
Yeah, well, and if it's a team that just doesn't have really like a star that's going to carry them, then the only way they're going to win games is by excellent ball movement and just crisp passes, blocking out to get extra possessions, or not letting the opponent have any extra possessions from offensive rebounds or turnovers. But I absolutely agree. I've thought for a long time that there has to be a shot clock nationwide in high school basketball. Another reason you got to be good is because there's just not very many possessions, and you're never – if a team is decent, you're probably not going to blow them out because every team is going to have a chance. They're going to be able to hang around because – if there's not very many possessions, you're not going to have that many opportunities to extend your lead. And we've seen that in college basketball too. Slower teams are more likely to be upset, because a fast-paced team, well, I guess a fast-paced team can build a big lead and then see it evaporate really quickly too because they're giving their opponent that many more possessions.
Just to kind of put it in perspective, for their speed of play, Kickapoo got 27 more shots up playing Greenwood than they did against Hartville.
Yeah.
So they're definitely playing Hartville's game when they're in that.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing
really frustrating to play against.
There's nothing stopping you. Like having no shot clock, I mean, you're almost forced into it unless you can somehow get them to turn the ball over a ton.
Which when they were really fundamentally sound. I mean, if a team like that's not fundamentally sound, then the better team's gonna win, obviously. But because of that and the pace of play is what it's kind of like the deadly
They've got it figured out.
Got the formula.
Yeah.
Well,
the meta.
And they won Class 2 last year, so maybe they did.
They must have played it.
Something.
We were too busy trying not to get pandemicked.
Yeah, but they're Class 3 this year, so.
Okay, yeah.
But
All right.
Thank you for that research.
Some future Mizzou players playing right here in Springfield.
I saw some clips of Trevon Brazile playing against Nixa from a few days ago, and he looked dominant. On defense, he had some huge blocks. He had some huge dunks as well. He looked like a Division I player in some of the clips I saw from that.
Defending at the rim and finishing at the rim. He's got it going on. All right. So it had been a while since we'd had a Mizzou game prior to the Texas A&M game. So since the debacle in the second half against Mississippi State, Mizzou had a week off due to COVID, but now they've won back-to-back games against Texas A&M and South Carolina. They beat Texas A&M 68-52. That was a very ugly game.
It would be.
Yeah, back and forth for most of the first half. Mizzou went on a 14-0 run that stretched the end of the second half, or the end of the first half, right up through the beginning of the second half. I remember saying when the first half ended, I just want to start the second half immediately because we have all the momentum. But they carried it into the second half this time. They went on another 11-0 run midway through the second, and they just kind of coasted to a victory. So that was nice to see, even though it wasn't the prettiest game. It was just not the prettiest game is an understatement. It was ugly at times.
The first half especially was making my eyes bleed.
Yeah. But Missouri was able to get the win, and they kind of made it look easy down the stretch.
Yeah. Well, we knew it was going to be that kind of game, but I think A&M was even worse on offense than I probably even anticipated, especially at home. I mean, scoring 52 points. It's just painful to watch. It seems like every year they have, well, it's usually Xavier Flag that plays really well against us, and they just didn't have that guy. It looked like J.J. Chandler maybe won it a couple of times, looked like he was interested in scoring, and got me a little bit worried, but he never really broke out more than one or two times, so they just could not get anything going, and they turned the ball over so much. They one of the few teams that turns the ball over more than Missouri, and they did turn the ball over more than Missouri in this game. That was kind of the killer for them.
Yeah. For Missouri, Tillman had an excellent game, 14-10 double-double, played 33 minutes, which is probably the most important thing. I mean, if he's staying on the floor, not in foul trouble for 33 minutes,
it's beautiful.
He's going to put up these type of numbers just from being available that much, it seems like.
There really aren't many more skilled big men probably in the country than Jeremiah Tillman. Yeah. And we've known that his whole time at Missouri. We know his potential. We know how talented, how fluid, how good of an athlete he is.
Day one, he came to Columbia with an offensive skill set that you just do not see straight out of high school.
His explosiveness, his footwork, all of it is there and has been there. But he's just these little maybe mental mistakes or just foul trouble has kept him from putting up performances like we've seen. But he has just been on another level, like way beyond we've seen him and consistently the last several games they've played.
Drew Smith had a bounce-back game. He was kind of desperate for one against A&M. He had 15 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. So that was
a vintage Drew Smith game.
Oh, yeah. Took the words right out of my mouth. And
I had to get him in there before you did. I knew that's where you were going.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned earlier, though, Missouri only 14 turnovers. That's good for Missouri. What's more important is the percentage of possessions that ended in a turnover, which was only 21.5%. So that's decent. Although 4 of those 14 were from Xavier Pinson.
He struggled a little bit recently.
And like you mentioned, they forced 17 turnovers. So being on the winning end of that is huge.
Yeah, Xavier has struggled a little bit, but luckily we haven't really played anybody the last couple of games that we really needed him. And Drew's bounced back, and Mark had a good game against South Carolina. So we've had other guys step up, but we really need Xavier to kind of figure out the turnovers things because he's so talented and kind of like Tillman. We know what his ceiling can be, but there's just a couple of things that hold him back, and turnovers is obviously the main thing that is a detriment to his play.
Yeah, it's been good to see Drew Smith control his fouling in these last 2 games because he was just giving us some head-scratching fouls, just, like 5 feet past the free throw line or like
He's reaching in too much.
Yeah, and obviously he generates a lot of steals by being pesky and a little bit handsy on defense, but you can just see him overplay a couple times, and maybe you got to live with some of that, getting burned a couple times. He doesn't get burned by giving up an open basket usually. He gets burned by just being a little bit too aggressive and fouling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can put up with it if he is getting steals and stuff, but a lot of the times the fouls do kind of start to accumulate, and if Xavier is not playing well, then we're really screwed.
Yeah, we definitely need Drew on the floor producing. Missouri, one stat that jumped out to me, Missouri shot 64% from 2 while holding A&M to 41% from 2. That'll win you just about any game that you play. It was nice to just kind of have a boring victory, and I would say that we got 2 of those. There were maybe some more flashy highlight plays in the South Carolina game that just kind of made it more fun to watch, and the offense was just rolling a little bit better. Yeah,
I would say that was definitely a significantly different style of game than A&M.
And that's another thing that you love to see. Yeah. We'll transition here to the South Carolina game. After A&M, Missouri was at that point 8-2 overall, 2-2 in conference. A&M dropped to 7-5, 2-4 in conference. That's a team that is not going to be near Missouri in the standings if Missouri has the season that we want them to at the end of the season. So you have to win those kind of games. The Mississippi State game was enough of a team that is not competing for a top 4 spot in the conference.
Yeah, and all they've done since we played them is lose. Yeah. They lost to A&M too, which blows my mind.
Yeah, so you just really can't have those losses, and they really need to limit it now to just the one in Mississippi State from here on out as far as losing to, bottom 5 teams. But unfortunately, you're probably not going to only lose one in a season. It's just a shame that it came after Missouri had an 18-point lead. But moving on to a nice win against South Carolina. And you almost called it perfectly. You had this as a high-scoring game. You had a score of 82-74. Ended up being 81-70.
Xavier Pinson was shooting free throws at the end of this game when it was pretty much garbage time, and they had 80 points. He made the first one, and I was like, come on. I was like aware that I was getting close to my projection, and he missed the second one, which would have given them 82 points. I was like, no.
Yeah. I was telling him, no, we don't need Kyle to get it exactly right now.
Yeah. You scoffed at me last week, telling me that we might even have to return to that segment because it could have been a cold take that I predicted a high-scoring game.
I'm happy to return to it.
So I just wanted
Missouri scored 81.
I will point that out, but I will also be humble and say I predicted Missouri to lose to A&M. So I can't be right all the time.
I don't know what you were thinking there. That would have been a disaster.
Well, it would have been, yeah. But A&M, like I said, was just far worse than I anticipated.
South Carolina was not very good either.
Yeah.
They have had just the most COVID issues you can imagine, and
poor Frank Martin, man. Yeah, he didn't look that great.
Yeah, he's been through it this season.
Yeah,
and
I kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah, me too. By all accounts, everybody that has ever talked to him or worked with him says he's a great guy, and so he's kind of easy to root for, even though his teams kind of play a style that I don't love on defense, and that's just because they're pesky and good.
They stick on you like glue, that's for sure.
Luckily, he doesn't quite have the talent in South Carolina that he has had in previous seasons, and Missouri was able to take advantage of it. They kind of controlled this one the whole way. They jumped out to a 13-2 lead.
That was a fun way to start.
Yes. And they kind of never looked back. I mean, they pretty much had it in control.
Yeah, offense was rolling the whole game, looked really confident. Tillman playing out of his mind again. I mean, South Carolina's tallest player is like 6'6", trying to guard Tillman. That just was a nightmare for him all night. And Tillman did whatever he wanted.
They didn't have a good option for a double team. It was so easy for him to pass over everybody.
They could have gone to Tillman a lot more, and it would have been just fine. Yeah. But they really didn't need to because Mark was hitting threes, and everybody played pretty well against South Carolina, to be honest. Maybe Xavier still kind of struggled.
Yeah. Drew had another solid game, 16 points. No steals in this one. I still think he's got to be a shoo-in for first-team all-defense at the end of the season.
Yeah, he got snubbed last year.
Yeah. You mentioned Mark Smith. He finally broke out of his slump. I mean, he was in something like a
half the season.
Yeah, 6 game long slump, 6 out of 10, and
yeah, he's the definition of streaky.
Yeah, 18 points in this one, 3 of 7 from 3. It's kind of a joke between you and I now that it seems like he makes threes in games where we don't necessarily need them all that much.
And it doesn't matter as much. I mean, It's not like Missouri just completely destroyed South Carolina where we didn't need Mark, but
it was down to a 10-point game
it
late
was, but
with like 4 minutes left.
It was kind of garbage time, in my opinion. I think that the game felt like it was more dominance than the final score reflected, but, I mean, you're right, though. I still feel like in the games where we could really, really need a bucket from Mark, it just doesn't quite seem to happen.
I'm sure there's an example of it happening, but it just the perception you get after a little while when he misses in some clutch moments.
Yeah.
It just seems like he is hesitant to pull the trigger sometimes.
Well, yeah, he misses a couple and then doesn't want it to just keep snowballing, I guess.
Which I guess if he's just going to go 1 for 7, then nobody wants that. But that's obviously a fine line when you have a guy that's supposed to be a good shooter. It seems like Missouri has had to deal with that the last. Outside of the year with Jonte, Cassius, and Jordan Barnett, then there's just always been a few guys where it's like, man, they're supposed to be better shooters than this.
Yeah, they haven't really shot the 3-ball well since, 2012 season?
Yeah.
They were really good in 2012, 2013 season, but they still didn't shoot the 3-ball very well that year.
Yeah. I mean, you think back to Konzo's first year with those 3 guys, and then before that, you got to think about Jabari Brown.
Yeah.
He was pretty much lights out.
That's true.
And they had good supporting shooters in Ernest Ross and Jordan Clarkson could confidently knock down a 3. So, yeah, there's been
a team though.
Yeah.
It seems like we haven't really it hasn't been a strong point for Mizzou in a really long time.
I'm just going to just see how accurate. I'm going to see
how
accurate that take
data
is real quick.
Okay, so obviously the year you mentioned, the 2017 season or whatever that was good.
It's technically we called 18. They were
and then the year
they were 26th in 3-point shooting.
Okay, and then the year with Jabari Brown and Jordan Clarkson was probably not as good as that, but decent.
That would have been you're exactly right. Very middle of the road, 166th. Shooting about 34% as a team. But
I got to think the 2012-2013 squad was probably around that as well, and then I don't know after that. Probably.
Yeah, sorry, 12-13 was that 166. Year before that, obviously 2-seed year, they were 10th at 39.8.
That's good.
I would take some of that. An underrated year though, Konzo's second year. 78th in the country and 36.3%. And that was a lot of Mark Smith. Obviously, his sophomore season, coming in and shooting 45%. And that kind of, his reputation was completely reversed from his time at Illinois. He shot 26% as a freshman.
Yeah.
Turned around, shot 45%. And we haven't quite been able to get there since then. Anything else about this South Carolina game? Missouri went to the free throw line 30 times, only made 20.
Yes. So South Carolina was in the double bonus 8 minutes into the second half.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see Missouri convert a few more of those. And in a close game, you need to if you're Missouri. Getting there 30 times is awesome, but only making 20, not so much. I was really happy with their 3-point shooting, mainly that they just didn't attempt that many.
Mitchell Smith hasn't taken a 3 in a while.
Yeah.
I'm afraid Twitter might have hurt his feelings. But
well, hopefully the coaching staff didn't hurt his feelings, but just told him to take it easy. Missouri,
take it easy, would you?
Yeah, take it easy on those 3-pointers now, would you? Missouri as a team was 5 of 13. And that's obviously terrific. I mean, that's just under 40%.
Yeah, I mean.
So you can't ask for that every night, but even 4 for 13, that looks a lot better to me than they could easily go from 4 for 13 to 5 for 22, and it's just not necessary to take that many threes.
Especially when Tillman's dominating and you're playing their tallest player is like 6'7" or something. You don't shoot 23s in a game. You just keep feeding Tilly.
Yes.
Cameron, I do have one question for you on the notes. I'd like a little bit of an explanation. You wrote Mizzou, talking about the South Carolina game. You wrote Mizzou basically controlled the whole gamester, jumping out to an early 13-2 lead. Can you elaborate on that one?
That's what I call games.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened there. They controlled the whole gamester. I have no idea.
Oh, that's okay. Just I didn't know if that was like maybe some jargon I didn't understand or something.
No, maybe in my head, but alas, no. That's some kind of typo that I can't explain. Thanks for pointing that out, though.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Anything else here? I mentioned this in the Texas A&M game, but Missouri kind of shut down South Carolina, although they're not really known for their offensive firepower. South Carolina shot 45% from 2, 29% from 3. Pretty much take that out of Missouri's opponent anytime.
Yeah. So SEC outlook, Alabama good, Kentucky bad, Missouri's middle of the road right now.
Alabama, we said they were legit and good last week, and all they did was just destroy everybody they played.
Destroyed everyone they played.
LSU, they set a new record for an SEC game of three-pointers made in a game, and they had their starters out for like 75% of the game.
They beat LSU by like 40 plus. Can you imagine playing?
John Petty was 8 for 10 from 3.
I was gonna say. I mean, what do you do if the other team's just that hot? Like,
there's literally nothing you can do.
You're just like, okay, we give up. Yeah. We concede.
Yes. Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah.
I watched the end of that game, and there were no starters playing for Alabama.
They destroyed Arkansas too. That might have been last week though, but I think they're undefeated in conference, aren't they?
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. How have they lost 3 games?
I have no idea. They're probably gonna win like 15 SEC games now. I mean,
that just came out of nowhere.
Their schedule just kind of sets up now for them. They've got a lot of their tough games out of the way.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Who did they lose to though?
I don't even know.
They lost to a top 50 team in Stanford and Clemson, and then a top 100 team in Western Kentucky. But
they lost to Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story of that game is the fact that they shot 7 for 26 from 3. Alabama did. So when the shots aren't falling,
Western Kentucky has had some decent recruiting classes though.
Yeah.
They have like a 5-star center on their team.
Yep. Charles Bassey.
No, that's his name. But still, they got to beat that. They got to beat them.
Yeah. Top 100 team. Mm-hmm. Only lost by 2.
How many times did we play Alabama this year? Do we only play them once?
I sure hope so. I'm not the person to talk about with COVID and schedule rearranging.
Well, you're the one with the laptop, so.
Oh, sure. I'll tell you. They play Alabama one time. Missouri plays Alabama on Saturday, February 6th.
Home or away, please?
That is a home game.
Ooh.
Missouri.
That's a big one.
Yep. Need shots to not be falling for Alabama that night. What about Tennessee this coming Saturday?
Hey, we haven't played them in a while.
So all Tennessee did after destroying Missouri in Mizzou Arena was just be basically a completely different team and struggle to win games and get blown out by Florida. They
makes sense.
Lost to Alabama immediately. That's kind of sparked Alabama's, ascent to the top of college basketball. And then they got blown out by Florida. Listen to this. You want to know what I want to see from Tennessee against Missouri on Saturday?
I would like to know.
I want to see 35% from 2 and 17% from 3. Because that's what they did against Florida.
Oh, my.
So.
Yeah, I mean, when we played Tennessee the first time, it was like playing against Michael Jordan. Every player on the floor was Michael Jordan for them. Like they made everything, no matter where they were on the court. And it was really frustrating. And Yves Pons was like Shaq, and like every shot that Missouri put up was altered or blocked. And I would like to know like what's happened since that game, and I would like to I would like to have them not play that way on Saturday.
Yeah. They were without one of their star freshmen, Jaden Springer, against Florida. I think he'll be back for the Missouri game. Not sure, though.
Jerry Springer?
No, Jaden.
Okay.
Jerry's son.
That's different.
Jerry's nephew, sorry. Yeah, he was out against Florida. He's a good player. I just can't believe those shooting numbers. I mean, Florida, Mike White, he's known for having a good defense, but that's just a disaster for Tennessee. They were never in that game with those kind of numbers. What's Missouri got to do?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of prediction to make here.
They're still a terrible matchup for Missouri.
They are. What Missouri thrives off of is 2-point scoring. Right. That's how they've been successful this year. Is they've been better on the interior, and I feel like they're gonna get dominated on the interior in this game. And that's exactly what happened the first time they played Tennessee. Is Jeremiah Tillman's not going against 6'6" South Carolina rando. They're going against East Pons, and that's a totally different story. And I don't know. Missouri's going to have to shoot the 3-ball so much better than they did the first time, because that's really the only area that I think they can take advantage of Tennessee when Tennessee's on defense.
So I think it's fair to say the Missouri game has been Tennessee's best defensive performance in conference play by a decent margin. They held Texas A&M to 33% on 2-pointers, which is just abysmal, but Texas A&M not a great offensive team, obviously. To just shut down completely the only thing that Missouri's been good at, I just have to think Missouri will be more productive inside this time around.
They have to be. I mean, that's exactly what happened last time. Is they said, well, we can't get a layup off, like we can't get a shot off inside because we're getting blocked. I guess we'll start shooting some threes. Oh wait, we're terrible at that.
Yeah.
And so there's just a recipe for a complete blowout.
Yeah, this would be the perfect game for Xavier Pinson to break out of his slump a little bit. And against Tennessee the first time, he was getting to the rim at times, but his shot, it was like he just never had a chance for the ball to go in. Like he was getting to the rim, and then it was like, well, he's never making it because the defense was just playing it perfectly every time. Yeah. They have an uncanny way to just play the angles to where it looks like you've got a decent chance to make a basket at the rim, and they just make it difficult. And Pinson hasn't been the most efficient even when he does get to the rim. Drew Smith, honestly, the same story for him. Our only players that are, I would say, superior in their efficiency in the paint would be obviously Tillman, Javon Pickett, and Mitchell Smith. Like, those are the only guys, and even Mitchell maybe not quite as much, but I don't know.
Yeah, this joke has kind of become overused at this point, but we need Pickett to think he's playing the other orange team.
Yes, that would be helpful. But he's had a solid run here lately.
Yeah.
He's been doing exactly what you need him to do, though.
Right. He really has been playing really good basketball in the last few weeks.
You want to make any kind of prediction about this one?
I'll make a prediction. I think Tennessee wins 71-62.
Ken Pomeroy himself has it Tennessee 68-62. So, great minds think alike there.
Apparently.
Man.
Got a computer for a brain.
I just wish Missouri had made it more competitive at Mizzou Arena. I got to think now with the way Tennessee has performed, I thought they were just going to not lose a conference game. Obviously, not literally.
Me too. I was like, they're going to the Final Four. That's what I said on this very podcast after we played against them.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess this is what happens if Michael Jordan is alive and well in college again.
I hope he's okay.
He's fine, everybody.
As far as we know.
I don't know why I said alive.
All right. Well, I'm going to predict that Missouri takes advantage. Now here I'm thinking that Tennessee's going to be all psyched up. They just got destroyed by Florida, so they're not going to let that happen again. They're going to come out strong, and Tennessee's going to win a close one, Give me Tennessee 73, Missouri 68.
Now, we had some Tennessee fans come and say some things in the comments after our Tennessee recap a few weeks ago, and they liked how we analyzed Tennessee at that point.
They liked how we gave just like undying praise to the team of the century.
Yes. So if you guys are listening again, feel free to let us know in the comments. First of all, let us know what's happened to Tennessee. Since I'm assuming you guys have watched all of Tennessee's games. What in the world has happened, and what's going to happen in this game? What are your predictions?
I need a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
So after Missouri, I say, loses a close one to Tennessee, they go on the road and play Auburn, a.k.a. Sharif Cooper and company.
It's a one-man show, basically.
That's what they've become.
Yeah.
This season.
How is he not in the NBA? How did he not
That's
leave?
not allowed, Kyle. You have to.
Is he a freshman this year?
Yes.
Oh, my word. I swear he played last year.
No. You'd have known if he played last year. He'd have been all SEC. Probably player of the year.
Yeah.
But we actually saw him live in person when he was at the Bass Pro Tournament of Champions here in Springfield as a junior. He was most valuable player of the tournament.
Oak Hill?
McEachern, Georgia, alongside former Auburn Tiger Alex Okoro. Isaac,
that's definitely it.
There's Alex went to Oregon or something.
Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, that's how the announcer said it. So yeah, we saw him in person, Tournament of Champions. He destroyed everyone as a junior. He was just far and away the best player in that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And his McEachern team was excellent. He and Okoro were just a dynamic duo, and they both looked like they could play in the NBA like the following season. And Cooper was only a junior in high school. So I can see why you thought
that's probably why I got mixed up.
Yeah. Timeline was a little off there.
Mm.
So Auburn is 8-7 on the season. They are 2-2 with Cooper in the lineup. There was eligibility stuff early in the season with him. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I can tell you Auburn wishes they had him for the start of conference play for sure, because they lost to Texas A&M and Ole Miss. They have now lost twice to Arkansas. But really, you can almost ignore everything pre-Sharif Cooper rejoining the team and playing in games, because since then they played Alabama really close, lost 94-90, and Cooper had 26 points in that one, his college debut. Then they beat Georgia 95-77, beat Kentucky 66-59, and then just lost a really close game at Arkansas 75-73.
Yeah, they're a completely different team when he's on the floor.
He has scored in his 4 collegiate games 26, 28, 11, and 25 points. And one of those was a 28 and 12 point assist double-double.
Jeez.
Yeah. He's really good. Does Auburn have any other players? We don't know.
Is Bruce Pearl even still there?
He sure is.
Is he in jail?
No, they haven't caught him yet. They did catch him actually at Tennessee, but that was a lifetime ago in college basketball. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that hopefully Missouri has some defensive-minded guards that could maybe do something here, but I don't know. Auburn is still, they're still a 70-ish KenPom team without Sharif Cooper. We'll see. I think undoubtedly their rating will rise as the season goes on with him running point for them and scoring a bunch of points for them. I don't know how you slow him down.
Hope he shoots bad.
Yeah. Alabama's a a better defensive team according to the metrics than Missouri, and he put up 26 and the team scored 92 or something. So
yeah, this is honestly this is a toss-up. This was definitely a win for Missouri before Sharif Cooper existed on their team. I don't know. This is just a complete coin flip for me. I'll say I'll try and redeem myself for the A&M debacle, and I will predict a close Missouri win, 75-74.
that is close. That's about as close as you can get. I think Auburn is going to be one of those teams within a couple games of Missouri in the SEC standings at the end of the season. And looking at their advanced metrics, they give up a ton of offensive rebounds. That's always a good sign for Missouri. And they don't force a ton of turnovers. They're kind of middle of the road in that area. In conference play, they're 7th on offense, 9th on defense. So, honestly, it is the Sharif Cooper show. So you got to just try to shut him down and make somebody else beat you. Hopefully, Konzo can get a little bit creative on the defensive side of the ball there. I think Missouri wins it, and you're kind of right there with Mr. Ken Pomeroy. He's got it as a 1-point Auburn win, 72-71. No, he doesn't. I'm looking at Auburn's page.
I fully believed you.
Not that it's that different. He's got it as a 1-point Missouri win, 72-71.
Oh, okay. Well, you made it sound like that was just the most absurd thing you've ever said.
Well, it's 100% wrong what I said.
True.
So.
True.
Man, I don't know. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Missouri wins 78-76.
Okay. All right. Mark Smith, we need you.
Yeah. Penson, we need you too. All hands on deck, please.
And most importantly, Tillman, we need you to keep playing well.
We need these two.
We can't just assume he's going to keep playing well. We're getting a little comfortable. Like, all right, we can't. I don't think we can just rely on Tillman getting a double-double.
He's got it figured out.
Okay.
All right. Anything else this week?
That covers it.
Okay. Take it away then.
All right, everybody, you can find this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week.